What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. It's a new year. We're into 2023. I hope everyone had a superb Christmas and have had a good New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, getting over those hangovers. So we're into the new year. We're on to a new season of rugby. But before we can move on to doing the new videos covering this year's rugby, we need to finish off talking about last year's rugby. Now, on the channel leading up to Christmas, I announced two videos. There was one going over the Northern Hemisphere and one going over the Southern Hemisphere Team of the Year. They were my player picks from across the year. There was a bunch of rules that I was following on the channel. You can go back at any time, watch those videos. They are kind of long. They weren't meant to be that long, but they ended up being that long. That was giving you guys my sort of thoughts on the players that have impressed me over the course of 2022. Now, leading up towards New Year's, what I did is I put out some polls on the channel that you guys could join in with, and we effectively get to build a community team of the year. So what I've done is I've gone through all the polls. We'll go through them today in this video, and we're going to create your guys' team of the year, and then afterwards I'll put it up side by side with my complete team of the year to see how close we got, because I've done a check and we're pretty close, to be fair. I'm quite surprised by there isn't way more diversity in this. Now, in case you didn't see the original team of the year videos that I was doing, I basically went through every single position. I followed a bunch of rules which will all be up on those videos. You can go back and check them, and by following those rules I picked the players that stood out to me the most. Now, there was a 23-man squad, so there was someone I picked in the starting 15 in that position, and more than likely there was also someone on the subs bench that I felt deserved like an honourable mention, but maybe didn't get into that starting 15. Because of that, there was basically 4 players for the majority of positions when you combine the two teams together. So what I did in terms of the community polls, I put up the 4 players that I picked, and then I left the 5th option of saying someone else. Then that way you guys could drop the name down in the comments. A bunch of people could say, yeah, we think this other guy, we think this other guy. If it outvoted, that would be the way to go. I'm only going to mention that because I think a couple of people misjudged what these polls are about. There was a couple of them where people have ticked someone else, but then not mentioned who else. So I can't consider them. And a couple of people have left comments where they're really questioning why I've left other people out. And it's probably because they were an honourable mention in the original videos, but didn't end up making the team. And these polls are based on just those teams alone. So there's a couple of people missed, but we will go through them. We will be having a look at people's comments as well, because it's always fun to see what other people picked. So starting off then with the loose head, Cyril Bai took the lead here, 61%, absolutely dominant. 33 people got in voting. The voting was actually quite varied, which I was quite surprised about. Some people voted on some and not others. Some positions have way more votes than others. Some are much more competitive than others. Cyril Bai managed to win the loose head position. In terms of the comments, who else did people pick? 9% of people picked someone else. And someone and David both went for Genge. Yeah, absolutely. I think he was actually named in the honourable mentions of that video. I think Genge has had a good year. Not surprised to see him out there, but Cyril Bai taking that loose head position. On to the hooker position then. Yeah, I mean, now the channel has built up a bit of a South African fan base at the point. I really thought this was going to be a bit closer. Maybe not Dan Sheehan or Taukiaho, but I really felt like Marshan and Malcolm Marks were going to be close based on sort of audience reactions and comments that I've seen. But Malcolm Marks smashing that out on 44%, so a bit of a blowout there. The other 3 coming in very close to each other, very tight fight there, but Malcolm Marks will take the hooker position. This is one of the ones I was on about. Someone did pick someone else, so we got 3% of the votes is someone else, but there was no comment, so I don't know. So not a lot I can do about that one. If you didn't put the name down, I don't know who else you wanted to mention along there. In terms of the tight head then, this one a bit more of a blowout. Tyg Furlong taking this one. I think most people consider Tyg Furlong like the best tight head in the world at the minute, so not that surprising to me. But nice to see some other votes in here. A couple of you went for Kyle Sinclair, Franz Malherbe, getting a couple of votes in there. We did have a comment on this one. Someone out for someone else. And someone said, Lomax schooled Alatoa so hard. Bro, come on. What do I mean? I don't know anything about rugby. So I'm going to guess by that you're voting for Lomax. But yeah, Lomax not going to be beating a 74% by any means. So Lomax there with a mention, but Tyg Furlong absolutely taking that with 74%. On to the locks then. So of course, for those people who've seen the rules, we are putting people in the exact position in the shirt number they've played for the majority of the year. Now this one was going to be real tight, I thought, but Eben Etzebeth absolutely smashing this one. He's had a good year, to be fair. He's absolutely crushed it. in that number 4 shirt. So 56% of people, 36 votes going in there. So what's that? Like 17 people voted for Evan Etzebeth. Tyke Furlong, Maro Toje, a little bit closer in that. I really thought Tyke Byrne would get a lot more votes here. I thought it was potentially going to be between these two. But Evan Etzebeth absolutely smashing that. You guys are loving a bit of the giant in the lock department there. In the number 5 shirt, Sam Whitelock with a bit of blowout in this one here. 61% in this one. Definitely standing out ahead of Federico Ruzza and Lou Diaga. We did have a couple of mentions, so we'll have a look at who else people have mentioned here. Paul Valemsa. A couple of people have gone for, and Tyke Byrne. Yeah, so this is one of the things that was probably going to come up. I've done quite hardcore, like put people in the position they played in. Tyke Byrne just hasn't played 5 for any majority of the game, so I can actually see a lot of people doing like an ultimate fantasy team where they actually have Etzebeth and Tyke Byrne in that lock department, move Tyke Byrne to 5. So I can actually see where Kieran's come from there. But Paul Valemsa, yeah, in fact, I don't even think I mentioned Paul Valemsa in the Northern Hemisphere video. But yeah, Paul Valemsa getting a vote in there. 6% split between the two of you there, but Sam Whitelock taking the 5 shirt. On to the blindside flanker then. And this one surprised me because the majority of the vote went for Khaleesi. Now, I'm not surprised Khaleesi got votes because Khaleesi had a really good year, to be fair. He's been absolutely killing it. But 51%. Now, Khaleesi was on my bench in my Southern Hemisphere video. I went for Gonzalez, who truly impressed me throughout this year. I thought this was potentially going to be a bit closer between all 4 parties, but Sia Khaleesi absolutely smashes there on the 51%. Peter O'Mahony coming in second on 31%. And Gonzalez there on 14. Poor old Jalanche down there in 3%. He's had a good year, but just not showing off as much as some of the other boys. Onto the open side flanker then. I think this is the biggest blowout from all the results. Josh van der Fleer taking 91% of the votes. Marcus Kramer at least getting a couple of people voted for Kramer along the way, 6% there. Another one where someone voted someone else but didn't put it down. I don't know. But Josh van der Fleer absolutely crushing it there. Probably expected. I think a lot of people pretty much across the rugby base have said, Van der Fleer is going to be taking that open side shirt. Number 8, again, another big turnout here. Ardi Sarve, 80%. Gregor Dritz gets his 17. 3% said someone else, but didn't want to tell me who. So Sarve are going to be taking that one. Of course, a couple of these ones have different numbers just because they didn't match up. I didn't have extra players on the bench in the teams, but I thought this might be an area where more people would vote. But I really sort of thought Van der Fleer and Sarve this year have been so impressive. I sort of expected it to go that way. In terms of the scrum half then, Antoine Dupont, really high out. A lot of people consider Antoine Dupont the sort of number 1 scrum half in the world. I actually thought this was going to be closer between Aaron Smith and Dupont. I think Aaron Smith's been really, really good this year. Jameson Gibson Park finishing off ahead of Aaron Smith. I mean, Ireland are number 1 in the world now. No reason why he shouldn't be. But I thought Aaron Smith did really well. So I sort of expected it close between those two. But Jameson Gibson Park takes that one. Someone else, we did also have another comment. We'll have a little bit of a read. And Rugger said Hendrickse for his potential. Yeah, absolutely. I think in my, in the Southern Hemisphere honourable mentions list, I think I said both Fafterklerk and Hendrickse. But I think it was mainly down to game time. They were always alternating. It was kind of hard to pick. Fafterklerk had some good games as well. So absolutely have a nice little honourable mention in there. But Antoine Dupont sealing that one out. On to the fly half then, and Johnny Sexton takes this one with 52%. Paolo Garbisi got a decent percent. I mean, this was another one. This was a big voting one, this one here. 64 votes. This might be one of the most voted for shirts. And Paolo Garbisi got 9%. So really nice to see the Italian love on the channel showing off for a couple of those boys who've been playing well. Damien Valemsa there on 16%. And Richie Mwanga coming in on 20%, so winning that sort of Southern Hemisphere battles in your guys' opinion. We did have some mentioned else as well. 3%, someone else voted for another one. And Skeptic said Finn Russell, which surprising to me. Just due to the amount of games. I'm really not sure actually how many games Finn Russell has played this year. He had a good autumn, to be fair. Really made a big impact into that Scotland team. But really felt like Blair Kinghorn was the number 10 for the year. So yeah, Finn Russell doing good waves, but probably game time I think for me there, why I wouldn't have really been considering Finn Russell for like team of the year, but certainly had some good games along the way. Left wing was a really weird one. Both positions are left wing because of adding up how many players were moving around between left wing and right wing, and who was impressing me. These weren't the two names when I was sort of sat down to first start doing these videos I expected, but Duhan van der Merwe versus Caleb Clark. Duhan van der Merwe manages to win on a 63%. Now, this was an interesting one because someone else actually beat Caleb Clark. A couple of people not fancying Caleb Clark here. Now, I did have a read of these, and a lot of these issues were mainly because people thought the exact same way as me. Kiliorense coming in from Rugger, Boffelli from Skeptic. Again, it's the difficulty because they were playing in left wing and right wing. I was adding up all the tallies and stuff, and they played right wing more than they did left wing, which is why they weren't voted in there. We got Mapimpi as a little vote in there as well. Yeah, I don't really think I spoke about Mapimpi a lot. Mapimpi's had a decent year, to be fair, for South Africa. And finally, Matterell says James Law. So I'm going to guess you mean James Lowe. A bit of a mistype. If there is a James Law, and it's gone past me, what do I know about rugby? James Lowe, for me, I had to look this one up because I don't even think I mentioned James Lowe that much. I remember James Lowe having a good Six Nations, but just sort of fell off. I think for me, Mac Hansen's been playing well. I'm not really sure about how many shirts he was playing in over the course of the year because he wasn't mentioned in the teams and stuff. But I did have to go back and look through this, and James Lowe played 6 out of... there's 11 games for Ireland, and there was like 2 or 3 games for Ireland A that they've played over the years, so it's kind of hard to judge. It's like 6 games out of like 13 James Lowe actually was in, so sort of like half the year. So again, I think game time for me there. If you only play half the games, I'm sure some of the stats back him up actually, because I think he made some really good meters in a lot of games. I bet if you look at things like average meters made, it's probably really high. But if you only play half the games and they were all good games, you don't have the opportunity to play the bad games that bring all those stats down. So, but nice to have a mention for him there. Surprised no one said like Mac Hansen, to be fair. I think Mac Hansen's done really well, and I feel a little bit bad that I missed him off a little bit in some of my videos. In terms of the centres then, inside centre, yeah, I kind of saw this one coming, to be fair. Geordie Barrett smashing this one, 78%. To be fair, I was a bit surprised Nick Tompkins was even in my team of the year for the Northern Hemisphere. There just weren't a lot of inside centres, really impressed me from the Northern Hemisphere. 10% went for different people, so about 4 people went for some other votes. We'll have a look through what other people have said. Vivara met George North, but yeah, you went for Tompkins. Oh, there you are, backing up the Tompkins vibe. Rugger says, bruh, what about Damien Dialende? There's a lot of people that say, bruh, what are you doing, man? What do you know about? Yeah, again, Damien Dialende, I think, was an honourable mention in the Southern Hemisphere video, but didn't get into the starting 15, and I also didn't have him on the bench because I think I had one of the wingers on the bench, so wasn't a choice, wasn't in there, but hey, you mentioned him in this. And the Matterell says, yeah, Jonathan Darty. Yeah, I think, again, he was in my honourable mentions for the Northern Hemisphere. It's nice to see people showing support for these people. They're not in the pick, so it's nice to see that you guys are seeing these other people's names who I'm picking along the way. I think Jonathan Darty's been a little bit underrated. Doesn't score that many points in the fantasy, which is a bit of a shame because he's a really good player. He does a lot of hard graft in games, but doesn't actually score that high in the fantasy. I'm sure his stats might not back him up either, but I just think the impact he has on the game is really, really good. It's nice to see him there. And of course, Damien Dialende, you know what he brings to a game. Outside centre. This one was a surprising one to me. I expected this one to be a bit more even. Gael Ficou and Rico Ioane. Rico Ioane smashing it out on 57%. You guys obviously love your attacking open play a bit more than necessarily how defensive people have done. Rico Ioane scoring there 57. 15% of people went for someone else. I expected as soon as I was making this poll, I was waiting for someone to say, what about Lukhanyo Am? Let's have a look at the comments. I bet someone says it. There we go. Hey, we got 2. We got 2 people. I knew someone would say about Lukhanyo Am. Jesse Creel in from Rugger. Yeah, Jesse Creel. I've seen really mixed comments about in some of the match reports, some of the preview videos. I've been seeing real mixed comments about Jesse Creel. I think he's been playing well, to be fair. I thought he steadied in really well. Ryan says Gary Ringrose, end of. Absolutely trying to back up Gary Ringrose there. I did think I said Gary Ringrose in the Northern Hemisphere video. I think, again, it was just the amount of switching going on that Ireland team. Robbie Henshaw coming in, playing 13, 12, and whether Aki's in there or not, there was a lot of switching. I think it was just sort of amount of games played across the year for me, which is why I actually ended up picking Gael Ficou over and Ringrose. But Ryan's pretty hard set on his Gary Ringrose. A couple of people voting for Am again. His injury, man, I thought Lukhanyo Am was playing so well. That injury that we got to see sort of about halfway through the year, oh man, just took him out. I really think Lukhanyo Am could have been in here but again, I think just sort of game time across the entire year for me was the reason I didn't go for Lukhanyo Am. The right wing, I imagine there's a couple of votes in here. People have said other ones, so I can imagine a couple of people have picked left wingers again, potentially going over there. Damien Pinot taking this one, 48%. Darcy Graham on 19. Boffelli who I actually gave the shirt to in my Team of the Year for his impact in that Argentina team, allowing them to get some wins through his boot. Down there on 9%, lowest voted, Kurt Llorenza. Yeah, coming in on 22%. So actually coming second, to be fair. So Damian Pinot is going to be taking the wing. We'll have a look at the comments, see what people say. Pedro says, has to be Darcy. He's a big Darcy supporter on the channel. I always like seeing that. Will Jordan. Now, that's an interesting one. I didn't think Will Jordan did a lot, in all honesty. He had a good couple of rounds at the end of the Rugby Championship. I remember having him as my captain in the fantasy for most of the Rugby Championship, and he scored almost nothing. He had 1 or 2 touches of the ball for about 3 games across the Rugby Championship, and then he had 2 better games towards the end. And then in terms of like the autumn series, he wasn't even playing. I'm not sure if there's some stats that maybe really back him. Maybe he's doing something incredible. Number of meters made per touch or something. I think he must be flying there. But I think he's been really good in the past. I've seen some of his games he's had in the past, and he's been absolutely smashing it. But yeah, this year for me, not really there. But hey, nice to see his name mentioned. And then finally, the fullback position, 66 votes. People wanted to get involved in this one. And this one is so nice to see, man. Angie Capuzzo taking that one on 53%. Everyone is just seeing how special this lad is for that Italy team. The work he's been doing, he's helping that team win games, beating Wales. That was a hard video for me to make, but, playing absolutely fabulously. Villy LaRue coming in there on a very respectable 41%. This might be one of the tightest ones, actually, out of 2 picks. There were some other selections we'll quickly take a look at. We've got to say, Stuart Hogg has stepped up this year. After a disappointing Six Nations at the beginning of the year, he at least deserves a mention. Absolutely, feel free to chuck in Stuart Hogg there as a mention. And Jabberwocky says, I should add a coach of the year as well. That's caught me off guard. They've all been sacked. So who would be my coach of the year? I would probably give mine to Andy Farrell, just for the hard work he's been doing with Ireland. I think he will have been disappointed with that. The fact they didn't manage to win against France in that Six Nations. It was a bit of an underwhelming game in the Six Nations, but bouncing back, big wins over New Zealand, South Africa. They had a hard game against Australia. They've got themselves to world number 1. So I'm going to go for Andy Farrell. Feel free to drop down your thoughts in the comments section down below about who you think deserves that award. And to finish off then, what we'll do, we'll put on screen for you guys now so that you can see what your final team of the year was based on the Mad Dragon community, who got the most votes, who got that percentage pick, and genuinely really surprising. I expected it to be a big variance. Of course, we all have our different opinions, our different thoughts on stuff, so I expected it to be wildly different. I'll put my team, the team I'm officially going for that's impressed me the most, on the board now for you guys. And there's not a lot of differences, to be fair. We had in total, I believe, 13 of the 15 exactly the same, which is kind of mad. I really expected it to be a bit more varied. Apologies to my South African subscribers, because you're going to feel a bit hard done by here. The only 2 changes from my picks to the community's picks are in the lock department and that number 6 shirt. I picked Tyke Byrne over Evan Etzebeth, mainly to Ty Burns' work around the park. I think Etzebeth's been awesome in terms of the line out and his carrying, his attacking as well. But it's just the defensive thing for me for Ty Burn. The amount of jackals he's getting involved with, just the work on the ground, rucking, as well as being able to do those line outs and running game. But I think that was a real tight call. And then in that blindside flanker, yeah, I'm not surprised people have voted Khaleesi. I think he's awesome. I think he's had a really good year. But I thought that was probably one of the tougher competitive shirts. But I've stuck with Gonzalez from that Southern Hemisphere team. I just impressed me so much. I was looking at some stats over New Year just to see, and he actually outperformed both Pablo Matera and Kramer in terms of the majority of the stats. And that is an incredibly competitive back row. Just his work, getting tries, being able to just get charge downs, just really impacting the way Argentina have changed their attack setup. I think he fits in so well. I think he's had a really good year, but I can absolutely see why people have gone for Khaleesi there. In terms of sort of switching around, if you wanted to do like an ultimate team or like a fantasy team for the year, there probably would have been some switch-ups. I think I probably would have had Tyke Byrne moved to 5 and Evan Etzebeth. Someone mentioned that in the comments as well. I think I probably would have done that rather than have Sam Whitelock. I would have had that switch up there. And I think I probably would have made a change at the wing as well. I think I might have dropped Van der Merwe and maybe added in Arensa or Darcy Graham. I think I might have put one of them on the left wing, or could have moved Damien Pinot onto the left wing and had one of them played on the right wing. But that's not the rules. That's not what I'm doing. So there we have it, guys. That is the MaD Dragon team of the year 2022 alongside of the communities team of the year. It's really fun. We're going to be sealing off the rugby news from last year now. We're going to be looking forwards towards the rugby that's going to be going on in 2023. We've got the Six Nations coming up very soon. It's a World Cup year. Hopefully it's going to be really good for the channel. I'm also working on a bit of a bigger project, which should be hopefully coming out towards the end of this month. I've been working on it all over Christmas, all over New Year. I'm going to be working on it through January. I'm scripting it. It's going to be a long video, so hopefully you guys will be enjoying sticking around for that towards the end of the month. It will probably be going up on the Patreon early, depending on when I get it done, but hopefully you guys will be looking forward to this mysterious project that I've been working on. So I hope you all enjoyed this one today, guys. Make sure you do drop down in the comments your thoughts on these teams. I always like to hear back from you guys, and I'll be seeing you over the next year, guys. Bye-bye.